I stood at the back of a church, watching my twin sister Sienna walk down the aisle in a dress I had once imagined myself wearing. The man waiting for her at the altar, smiling like he'd won the lottery, was my ex-fiancé. The man I had loved for 5 years. The man who had shattered my heart 6 months ago with a text message that said, "I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry." What he didn't say in that text was that he was leaving me for my own sister. My twin sister. The person who was supposed to be my other half, my best friend, my mirror image in every way except one. She had always wanted everything I had. But before I tell you how I walked into that church and destroyed their perfect day, before I show you the evidence I carried in my purse that would expose them both, let me take you back to the beginning. Because you need to understand how deep this betrayal went. You need to understand what they took from me before I took everything from them. My name is Celeste. I'm 29 years old, and this is the story of how my twin sister stole my life and how I got my revenge. Sienna and I were born 7 minutes apart. I came first, which Sienna never let me forget. Growing up, people always said we were identical, but anyone who knew us could see the differences. I was quieter, more thoughtful. Sienna was louder, more demanding. I was content with what I had. Sienna always wanted more. Our parents tried to treat us equally, but there was always this undercurrent of competition. If I got an A, Sienna needed an A+. If I made the volleyball team, Sienna had to be captain. If a boy liked me, Sienna had to prove she could take him away. And she always could. In high school, there was David, my first real boyfriend. We dated for a year until Sienna decided she wanted him. 3 weeks later, he broke up with me to be with her. They lasted exactly 1 month before she got bored and moved on. In college, there was Marcus, the guy I had a crush on for 2 years. The night I finally worked up the courage to tell him how I felt, Sienna swooped in at the party, kissed him in front of everyone, and took him home. They dated for 3 months until she found someone she liked better. But I forgave her every time. Because she was my sister, my twin, and she always said she was sorry, always cried and begged for forgiveness, always promised it would never happen again. I was so stupid. I met Owen at a charity gala 5 years ago. I was working as an event planner for a nonprofit in Chicago, and he was one of the major donors. He was handsome, successful, charming. He owned a real estate development company and had that confident smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. We talked for hours that night. He asked for my number. 3 days later, we had our first date. 6 months later, he told me he loved me. 2 years later, he proposed. It was perfect. He was perfect. For the first time in my life, I had something that was truly mine, something Sienna couldn't touch. Owen wasn't interested in her. He barely noticed her when she was around. He only had eyes for me. I remember the day I showed Sienna my engagement ring. We were at our favorite brunch spot in downtown Chicago, the place where we'd been meeting every Sunday for years. I slid my hand across the table, and the diamond caught the light. "Oh my God," she said, and her smile looked genuine. "Celeste, it's beautiful. I'm so happy for you." She hugged me, and I felt tears in my eyes. Finally, I thought. Finally, she's genuinely happy for me instead of jealous. I was such a fool. Before I continue, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love hearing from you. And if this story resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. The wedding planning started immediately. I had dreamed of my wedding day since I was a little girl, and now it was actually happening. Owen and I set the date for June, a year and a half away. Plenty of time to plan the perfect celebration. I asked Sienna to be my maid of honor. Of course I did. Despite everything in our past, despite the pattern I should have recognized, she was my twin sister. How could I not have her standing beside me on the most important day of my life? She cried when I asked her, real tears streaming down her face. "I would be honored," she said. "I promise I'll make this the best day of your life." The first few months of planning were wonderful. Sienna was helpful, enthusiastic, always volunteering to help with whatever I needed. She came with me to look at venues, helped me choose a caterer, gave her opinion on flowers and decorations. Owen seemed happy too. His business was doing well. We had just moved into a beautiful townhouse in Lincoln Park. Everything was falling into place. But looking back now, I can see when things started to change. It was about 8 months before the wedding. Owen started working later. He had always been dedicated to his business, but now he was coming home at 9, 10, sometimes 11 at night. He said there were big deals closing, important clients to wine and dine, projects that needed his attention. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was building our future, working hard, so we could have the life we wanted. His phone habits changed too. He started keeping it face down on the table. Started taking calls in the other room. When I asked who he was talking to, he'd say, "Just work stuff. Nothing interesting." The intimacy between us started to fade. We went from making love several times a week to maybe once a month. When I tried to initiate, he was always too tired, too stressed, too distracted. "I'm sorry, baby," he'd say, kissing my forehead. "Once this big deal closes, I'll have more time. We'll reconnect. I promise." I started having these moments of doubt, these little whispers in the back of my mind that something was wrong. But I pushed them away. Owen loved me. He had proposed to me. We were getting married in just a few months. Then there was Sienna. She was around more than usual, always offering to help, always suggesting we all hang out together. Her, me, and Owen. She'd text Owen directly about wedding stuff instead of going through me. She'd laugh at his jokes a little too hard. She'd touch his arm when she talked to him. But I told myself I was being paranoid. Sienna was my maid of honor. Of course, she was involved in the wedding planning. Of course, she and Owen were becoming friends. They were going to be family. God, I was so blind. 3 months before the wedding, Owen started going on more business trips. Quick overnights to Indianapolis, Milwaukee, St. Louis. He'd leave on a Friday and come back Saturday evening. I mentioned to Sienna once that I felt like I barely saw him anymore, that I missed him. "Men and their work," she said, rolling her eyes. "At least he's providing for you. That's what matters, right?" 2 months before the wedding, I found a receipt in Owen's jacket pocket. Dinner for 2 at an expensive restaurant downtown. The date was a Friday night when he told me he was working late at the office. My hands shook as I looked at the receipt. Dinner for 2. Who had he been with? When I asked him about it, he didn't even hesitate. "Client dinner," he said smoothly. "The Johnsons, remember? I told you about them. They're investing in the River North project." He said it with such confidence that I believed him. Or maybe I wanted to believe him so badly that I accepted the lie. 6 weeks before the wedding, everything fell apart. It was a Wednesday night. I had been at a late meeting with a client and came home around 9. Owen's car wasn't in the driveway, which wasn't unusual. He was probably still at the office. I walked into our townhouse, dropped my purse on the table, and heard something that made my blood run cold. Laughter. A woman's laughter. Coming from upstairs. My heart started pounding. I stood frozen in the entryway, listening. The laughter came again, followed by Owen's voice, low and intimate. I should have run. I should have left right then, and never looked back. But I needed to know. I needed to see. I walked up the stairs as quietly as I could. The bedroom door was cracked open. The lights were off, but I could see the glow of candles. Candles that I had bought, thinking Owen, and I would use them for a romantic night. I pushed the door open. Owen was in our bed, with another woman. They were tangled in the sheets, his hands in her hair, her leg wrapped around his waist. And then the woman turned her head and looked right at me. It was Sienna, my twin sister, in my bed, with my fiancé. The scream that came out of me didn't even sound human. It was this raw, primal sound of pure agony. Owen jumped up, sheets falling away, his face going white. Sienna sat up slowly, and I saw something in her eyes that I'll never forget. Not guilt, not shame, satisfaction. "Celeste," Owen started, reaching for his pants. "This isn't." "Get out," I said, my voice shaking so hard I could barely get the words out. "Both of you. Get the fuck out of my house." Sienna stood up, not even bothering to cover herself. She walked past me to grab her clothes from the floor, and as she did, she whispered, "I told you I'd make your wedding day the best day of your life. I just didn't say it would be your wedding." That's when I lunged at her. I don't remember deciding to do it. My body just moved, my hands reaching for her throat, wanting to hurt her, wanting to destroy her like she had destroyed me. Owen grabbed me, pulled me back. I was screaming, crying, trying to break free. Sienna got dressed calmly, like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just blown up my entire life. "Celeste, please," Owen said, still holding me. "Let me explain. It's not what you think. It's not what I think," I repeated, my voice hoarse from screaming. "I just found you fucking my sister in our bed, and it's not what I think." Sienna was at the bedroom door now, fully dressed, her purse in her hand. She turned and looked at me with those eyes that were exactly like mine, that mirror image that had always been there. "He never loved you, Celeste," she said. "He wanted me from the beginning. But you asked him first, so he said yes to you. I was just helping him see what he really wanted." She left. I heard her footsteps on the stairs, heard the front door open and close. And I stood there in the ruins of my life, looking at the man I had loved for 5 years, the man I was supposed to marry in 6 weeks. "Is it true?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper now. "Did you ever love me?" Owen couldn't look at me. That told me everything I needed to know. "Get out," I said. "Get out of my house. Get out of my life. Celeste, we need to talk about this. Get out." He left. He packed a bag while I sat on the couch, staring at nothing, my whole body numb. He tried to talk to me, tried to explain, tried to tell me it had just started. It didn't mean anything, he was confused. But I didn't hear any of it. I was gone. The Celeste who had loved him, who had trusted him, who had believed in our future, she died in that bedroom the moment I saw them together. The next few days were a blur of canceling everything. The venue, the caterer, the photographer, the florist. Every phone call was agony. Every person I had to tell was another reminder of my humiliation. My parents were devastated. My mother cried for hours. My father wanted to kill Owen with his bare hands. But the worst part was telling them about Sienna, telling them that one twin had destroyed the other's life. My mother couldn't believe it at first. "Sienna would never do that," she said. "There must be some mistake." But there was no mistake. I showed her the texts I found on Owen's phone that night after he left. Months of texts between them. "I need you. When can I see you again? I can't stop thinking about you." The texts started 4 months before I caught them. 4 months of my sister and my fiancé sneaking around behind my back. 4 months of lies and betrayal while I planned a wedding that would never happen. I moved out of the townhouse. I couldn't stay there, couldn't sleep in that bed, couldn't walk through those rooms without seeing them together. I moved into a small apartment on the other side of the city and threw myself into work, trying desperately to forget. Owen sent me messages every day for weeks. He called, emailed, even showed up at my office once. Security had to escort him out. His messages were all the same. He was sorry. He had made a mistake. He wanted to work things out. He loved me. But I knew the truth now. He didn't love me. Maybe he never had. Maybe Sienna was right, and he had always wanted her. I blocked his number. I blocked Sienna's number. I blocked them both on every social media platform. I cut them out of my life completely. For 3 months, I heard nothing. I started therapy. I started trying to rebuild my shattered sense of self-worth. My therapist helped me see the patterns, helped me understand that Sienna's behavior wasn't normal, wasn't sisterly competition. It was pathological. She had been trying to destroy me our entire lives. Then, 4 months after I caught them, I got a text from my mother. "Have you heard? Sienna and Owen are engaged." I stared at that text for a long time. Engaged. 4 months after he left me. 4 months after he promised he loved me and wanted to work things out. He had proposed to my twin sister. And she had said yes. I thought I had reached the bottom of the pain, but that text showed me there was further to fall. They weren't even pretending to be ashamed. They weren't hiding. They were flaunting it. My mother's next text came a minute later. "The wedding is in 2 months. They want to invite the family. I don't know what to tell them." 2 months. They had been engaged for weeks, and didn't even tell anyone until the wedding was almost here. Probably because they knew what the reaction would be. I called my mother. "I'm not going," I said as soon as she answered. "I don't care what anyone says. I'm not watching them get married." My mother was crying. "I know, sweetheart. I wouldn't ask you to. But Sienna, she keeps calling me, asking if you'll come, saying she wants to make amends." "Make amends?" I repeated, my voice rising. "She stole my fiancé, fucked him in my bed, and now she wants to make amends by inviting me to watch them get married." I know. I told her it was inappropriate. But Celeste, I think there's something wrong with her. I think she's not well. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. She's not well? She's a narcissist, Mom. She's always been a narcissist. We just didn't want to see it. After I hung up with my mother, I sat in my apartment and felt something shift inside me. The pain was still there, but underneath it, something else was growing. Rage. Cold, calculated rage. Sienna wanted me at her wedding. She wanted to rub it in my face, wanted to show everyone that she had won, that she had taken everything I had and made it hers. Fine. I would go to her wedding. But I wouldn't go as the destroyed, heartbroken victim. I would go as the woman who would destroy them both. I started planning my revenge that night. First, I needed information. I needed to know everything about Owen's business, his finances, his life. I hired a private investigator, a woman named Diane who came highly recommended and didn't ask questions. I need to know everything. I told her. His business dealings, his bank accounts, where he goes, who he sees, everything. Diane nodded. How deep do you want me to go? As deep as it takes. While Diane was digging into Owen's life, I started looking into Sienna's. I knew her passwords. We had always shared everything growing up. I knew her email password, her social media passwords, her banking information. I accessed her email and found months of correspondence between her and Owen. Love letters, explicit photos, plans for their future. My stomach turned reading them, but I saved every single one. Then I found something that made my blood boil even hotter. An email from Sienna to her friend Melissa, dated 2 weeks after I caught them. I finally have everything she has, Sienna had written. The guy, the house, the life. She always thought she was better than me because things came easier to her. Well, now I have her perfect life, and she has nothing. And you know what the best part is? Owen says she was boring in bed anyway. He says I'm so much better. I read that email 5 times, each time feeling the rage build higher. She didn't love Owen. She wasn't even really interested in him as a person. She just wanted to take him from me. She wanted to prove she could. This wasn't about love. This was about winning a competition I didn't even know we were having. Diane came back to me 2 weeks later with a folder full of information. We met at a coffee shop far from my usual haunts, and she slid the folder across the table. Your ex-fiancé has been busy, she said, and not in a good way. I opened the folder and started reading. What I found was better than I could have hoped for. Owen's real estate company was in serious financial trouble. He had been over-leveraging, taking out loans against properties that weren't generating the income he projected. He was about 6 months away from bankruptcy if things didn't turn around. But it got better. Owen had been lying about his business trips. He wasn't meeting clients. He was meeting other women. Diane had photos of him with at least 3 different women over the past 2 months. In hotels, in restaurants, in parking lots making out in his car. He was cheating on Sienna the same way he had cheated on me with her. There's more, Diane said, and she pulled out another set of documents. I did some digging into his financial records. He's been moving money around, hiding assets from his business partners. If this came out, he could be facing criminal charges for fraud. I looked up at her, my heart racing. Criminal charges, embezzlement, tax fraud, possibly more. His business partners don't know he's been siphoning money into offshore accounts. I have documentation of over $500,000 in transfers over the past year. This was it. This was how I would destroy him. Can I have copies of all of this? I asked. That's what you're paying me for, Diane said with a small smile. But be careful what you do with it. This kind of information, if it gets out the wrong way, could come back on you. Don't worry, I said. I know exactly what I'm doing. The next few weeks were spent organizing everything. I created a timeline of Owen's fraudulent activities. I compiled all of Sienna's emails and messages. I gathered photos from Diane of Owen with other women. And I made copies of everything. Digital copies, physical copies, copies stored in the cloud, copies stored in a safety deposit box at a bank across town. I wasn't taking any chances. 3 weeks before the wedding, I got a phone call from Sienna. I hadn't heard her voice since that night in my bedroom, and hearing it now made me want to throw my phone across the room. But I answered, because I needed to know what she wanted. Celeste, she said, and she sounded nervous. Hi. It's me. I know who it is. Right. I wanted to talk to you about the wedding. I'm not going. Please, she said. And now her voice took on that wheedling tone I remembered from childhood, the tone she used when she wanted something. Please come. It would mean so much to me. To us. We want to move past this. To heal as a family. I almost laughed. Move past this. Sienna, you slept with my fiancé. You stole him from me. You destroyed my life. And now you want me to come watch you marry him. It wasn't like that, she said. You don't understand. Owen and I, we fell in love. It wasn't intentional. It just happened. We tried to fight it, but the heart wants what it wants. The heart wants what it wants. Like she was the victim in some tragic romance, instead of a sister who had betrayed her twin in the worst possible way. I'll think about it, I said, and I hung up before she could say anything else. I had no intention of thinking about it. I was already going. I had always been going. I just needed her to think I was undecided. 2 weeks before the wedding, I received a phone call from Owen. He must have gotten a new number, because I had him blocked on his old one. Celeste, please don't hang up, he said as soon as I answered. I should have hung up, but I wanted to hear what he had to say. What do you want, Owen? I want you to come to the wedding. I know it's a lot to ask, but Sienna and I, we really want your blessing. My blessing. This man had cheated on me with my own sister, and now he wanted my blessing. Why? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. Why do you care if I come? Because you're important to Sienna. She's been heartbroken that you two aren't speaking. And I want to make this right, Celeste. I know I hurt you. I know I fucked up. But I love Sienna. I want to marry her. And I want you to be there to see that we're serious about this, that this isn't just some fling. I see, I said. And what about all those other women Diane photographed you with? Are they serious too? There was a long silence on the other end of the line. What are you talking about? He finally said, but his voice was shaky now. I know about the women, Owen. I know about your business problems. I know about a lot of things. So maybe you should stop pretending you're a changed man who's finally found true love. Celeste, I don't know what you think you know, but I'll see you at the wedding, I said, and I hung up. Let him sweat. Let him wonder what I knew and what I planned to do with it. The week before the wedding, I went shopping. I bought a dress, a beautiful red dress that was elegant and sophisticated and definitely not appropriate for a wedding guest. I didn't care. I wasn't there to follow etiquette. I also made copies of all my evidence and put together packets. One for Owen's business partners, one for Sienna's employer, one for Owen's parents, one for my parents, and one that I would bring with me to the wedding. My therapist asked me if I was sure about what I was doing. Revenge, she said gently, doesn't always bring the closure you think it will. Maybe not, I said, but it will bring me justice. And right now, that's enough. The night before the wedding, I barely slept. I kept going over the plan in my head, making sure I hadn't missed anything, making sure I was ready. Tomorrow, Sienna and Owen would stand at an altar and promise to love each other forever. Tomorrow, in front of all their friends and family, they would celebrate the relationship they had built on lies and betrayal. Tomorrow, I would make sure everyone knew the truth. The wedding was at a beautiful church in Oak Park, the same church where my wedding was supposed to have been. Of course, Sienna had chosen it. She wanted my life, so why not have my venue too? I arrived early, while guests were still filing in. I wore my red dress and dark sunglasses, my hair pulled back in a sleek bun. I looked good. I looked strong. I looked like a woman who was about to burn everything to the ground. I found a seat in the back, away from my family. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to explain why I was there. I just wanted to wait. The church filled up slowly. I recognized most of the guests. Owen's family, his business partners, his friends. Sienna's colleagues from her marketing firm. My parents were in the third row, looking uncomfortable. My father kept glancing back at me, worry etched on his face. If this story is making your blood boil like mine was, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, the revenge gets so much better. Your support means everything to this channel. The music started. Everyone stood. The bridesmaids walked down the aisle, one by one. I recognized a few of them, girls Sienna had been friends with since college. Then came the bride. Sienna walked down the aisle on our father's arm, and I felt a stab of pain seeing him escort her. He looked like he wanted to be anywhere else, but he was doing his duty as her father. She was wearing a white dress, an elaborate gown with a long train and intricate beading. She looked beautiful. She always had. We share the same face after all. But I knew what was underneath that beautiful exterior. I knew the rotten core of her. Owen stood at the altar watching her approach, and I could see it on his face. He thought he had won. He thought he had gotten away with everything. The ceremony began. The pastor welcomed everyone, spoke about love and commitment and sanctity of marriage. I wanted to laugh. What sanctity? This marriage was built on betrayal and lies. They exchanged their vows. Sienna's voice was sweet and sincere as she promised to love Owen forever. Owen's voice was steady as he promised the same. Then came the part one had been waiting for. If anyone here has any reason why these two should not be wed, the pastor said, speak now, or forever hold your peace. I stood up. The entire church turned to look at me. I heard gasps, whispers. I saw my mother's face go pale. I saw my father half rise from his seat, but I only looked at Sienna and Owen. I object, I said, my voice ringing clear in the silent church. Sienna's face went white. Owen looked like he was going to be sick. Celeste, Sienna started, but I held up my hand. Before you marry this man, I said, walking down the aisle toward them, there are some things everyone here should know, some truths that have been hidden for too long. I reached into my purse and pulled out a USB drive. Owen, I said, looking at him directly, why don't you tell everyone here about your business, about the fraud you've been committing, about the $500,000 you've embezzled from your partners? The church erupted. Owen's business partners stood up, shouting. Owen's face went from white to red. That's not true, he said. She's lying. She's just bitter. I have documentation, I said, holding up the USB drive. Bank records, wire transfers, emails, everything. Your partners might want to have a look before they congratulate you on your marriage. I handed the USB drive to one of Owen's partners, a man named Richard who I had met several times at company events. He took it, his face grim. Then I turned to Sienna. And you, I said. Sweet Sienna, should we tell everyone here how this relationship started? Should we tell them that you seduced my fiancé? That you slept with him in my bed while I was planning our wedding? Celeste, please, Sienna said, tears streaming down her face now. Real or fake? I couldn't tell anymore. Don't do this. Oh, I'm not done, I said. I pulled out my phone and held it up. Should I read some of your emails? The ones where you brag about stealing my life. The ones where you mock me to your friends. No, Sienna whispered. I finally have everything she has. I read from my phone. She always thought she was better than me. Well, now I have her perfect life, and she has nothing. The gasps were louder now. My mother was crying. My father looked like he wanted to kill someone. And Owen, I continued, turning back to him. Should we talk about the 3 women Diane photographed you with in the last 2 months? Should your bride know that you've been cheating on her the same way you cheated on me? I pulled out the photos and held them up. Clear images of Owen with other women, kissing them, holding them, taking them into hotel rooms. Sienna looked at the photos, her face crumbling. Owen, she said, her voice small. Is this true? Owen said nothing. His silence was answer enough. You deserve each other, I said to both of them. 2 cheaters, 2 liars, 2 people who will do anything to get what they want, no matter who they hurt. You're perfect for each other. I turned to address the whole church. I came here today not to stop this wedding, but to make sure everyone knew the truth. These 2 people built their relationship on lies and betrayal. They destroyed lives to be together. And they thought they could just move forward like none of it mattered. I looked at Sienna one last time. You wanted everything I had, I said. Well, now you have it. A cheating fiancé, a man who's about to be arrested for fraud, and a wedding that everyone here will remember for all the wrong reasons. Congratulations, Sienna. I hope it was worth it. I turned and walked back down the aisle. No one tried to stop me. The church was in chaos. People were shouting, crying, demanding answers. I walked out into the sunshine and took a deep breath of free air. Behind me, I could hear Sienna screaming Owen's name. I could hear him trying to defend himself. I could hear their perfect day falling apart. And I smiled. The aftermath was beautiful chaos. Owen's business partners examined the evidence I provided and immediately contacted their lawyers. Within a week, Owen was under investigation for fraud and embezzlement. His company collapsed. His assets were frozen. The women in the photos came forward with their own stories of how Owen had lied to them, promising each of them a future while being engaged to someone else. Sienna tried to stand by him at first. She called me dozens of times, leaving voicemails that ranged from angry to begging. I didn't answer any of them. But within 2 weeks, she left him. I heard through my mother that she had moved back to our parents' house, claiming she had been deceived just like I had been. Too little, too late. Owen was eventually charged with multiple counts of fraud and faced up to 5 years in prison. His lawyer tried to make a deal, but the evidence against him was overwhelming. Sienna lost her job. Word spread about what she had done, how she had pursued and seduced her twin sister's fiancé. Her employer didn't want that kind of person representing their company. As for me, I was finally free. I continued with my therapy, working through the pain and betrayal. My therapist helped me see that what I did at that wedding wasn't just revenge. It was reclaiming my power, refusing to be a victim anymore. My relationship with my parents was strained for a while. My mother struggled with what Sienna had done, with accepting that one of her daughters could hurt the other so badly. But eventually, she came around. She saw that I had been defending myself, that I had been right to expose the truth. Sienna tried to reach out to me several times over the next few months. Letters, emails, showing up at my apartment. I got a restraining order after the 3rd time she appeared at my door. In her letters, she alternated between blaming me for ruining her life and begging for forgiveness. She claimed she was sick, that she needed help, that she had been competing with me our whole lives because she felt inadequate. Maybe that was true. Maybe there was something genuinely wrong with her. But I didn't care anymore. 6 months after the wedding that never happened, I was offered a promotion at work. A big one, running the entire events division for a major corporation. Better pay, better benefits, better everything. I took it. I also started dating again. Slowly, carefully, with trust issues that I was working through with my therapist. But I was ready to open my heart again, to find someone who deserved my love. A year after that day in the church, I ran into Owen at a coffee shop downtown. He looked terrible, thinner, older, defeated. He was out on bail, waiting for his trial. He saw me and immediately looked away, like he couldn't bear to face me. Good. I walked past him without saying a word. He wasn't worth my time or my energy. Sienna, I heard, had moved to another state. California, maybe, or somewhere else far away where people didn't know her story. My mother mentioned her occasionally, but I always changed the subject. That chapter of my life was closed. Today, I look back on that day in the church, and I don't regret a single thing. Some people told me I went too far, that I was cruel, that I should have taken the high road. But the high road would have meant staying silent. The high road would have meant letting them get away with destroying me. I chose the road of truth instead. I chose to expose them for what they really were. And I chose to reclaim my life on my terms. Was it revenge? Yes. Was it justified? Absolutely. Did it bring me the closure I needed? More than I could have hoped for. My name is Celeste. I'm 29 years old, and I'm the woman who destroyed her twin sister's wedding because she deserved it. 2 years have passed since that day in the church. 2 years since I walked down that aisle and exposed every lie, every betrayal, every cruel manipulation that Sienna and Owen had woven together. People always ask me if I regret it, if I wish I had handled it differently, taken the high road, let karma do its work without my intervention. My answer is always the same, not for a single second. But what happened after that church confrontation, that's the part of the story most people don't know. That's the part where justice really got served, where the consequences came crashing down on both of them in ways I couldn't have planned even if I tried. Let me tell you about the real aftermath. Let me tell you how completely their lives unraveled while mine flourished in ways I never imagined possible. 3 days after the wedding disaster, Owen's business partners filed a lawsuit against him. Not just for the embezzlement I had exposed, but for breach of fiduciary duty, fraud, and about 6 other charges their lawyers had dug up once they started really investigating. Richard, the business partner I'd handed the USB drive to, called me personally to thank me. "You saved us millions," he told me. "If we'd gone forward with the next phase of investment, we would have lost everything." He was planning to drain the accounts and disappear to the Cayman Islands. The Cayman Islands. Owen had been planning to take Sienna on their honeymoon to the Cayman Islands. Now I understood why. It wasn't a honeymoon destination, it was an escape plan. He was going to marry my sister, take her on a romantic honeymoon, and then vanish with millions of dollars of other people's money, leaving his business partners and probably Sienna herself holding the bag. When I told Diane, my private investigator, about this discovery, she dug deeper. What she found made my blood run cold. Owen had taken out a massive life insurance policy on Sienna 3 weeks before the wedding. $3 million, with himself as the sole beneficiary. "Celeste," Diane said when she showed me the documentation, "I think he was planning to kill her." The words hung in the air between us like a death sentence. What? Think about it. He marries her, they go to the Cayman Islands on their honeymoon, he's already set up offshore accounts, he has a life insurance policy on her, if something happened to her there, he'd get $3 million, plus all the money he embezzled, and he could disappear to a country with no extradition treaty. I sat in stunned silence, processing what she was saying. Owen wasn't just a cheater and a thief. He was potentially a murderer. And Sienna had been so blinded by her desire to win, to take what was mine, that she'd nearly become his victim. I called the police immediately. They opened an investigation. The life insurance policy, combined with the offshore accounts and the evidence of his financial crimes, painted a damning picture. Owen was arrested 2 weeks later, not just for embezzlement, but for conspiracy to commit insurance fraud and attempted murder. The prosecutor argued that the pattern of behavior, the secret life insurance policy, the offshore accounts, the honeymoon location, all pointed to a plan to stage Sienna's death and collect the insurance money. Owen's lawyer tried to fight it, claiming it was all circumstantial, that the life insurance policy was just normal pre-wedding financial planning. But then one of Owen's mistresses came forward, a woman named Gabrielle, who he'd been seeing for over a year. She told investigators that Owen had once joked with her about how easy it would be to stage an accident in the islands and how insurance companies always paid out for honeymoon tragedies. She had thought he was just making dark humor at the time. Now she realized he had been planning it all along. The trial was a media sensation. Real estate developer planned to murder bride for insurance money, the headlines screamed. Owen's face was everywhere, and not in the way he'd once dreamed of when he imagined being a successful businessman. I attended every day of the trial. I sat in the gallery and watched him squirm, watched his expensive lawyers try and fail to explain away the evidence, watched the jury's faces as they realized what kind of monster he really was. Sienna was called to testify. I saw her for the first time since the church, and she looked terrible. She had lost weight, her skin was pale, her eyes were hollow. She took the stand wearing a simple black dress, her hands shaking as she was sworn in. The prosecutor asked her about the life insurance policy. "Did you know your fiancé had taken out a $3 million policy on your life?" "No," Sienna whispered, her voice barely audible. "I had no idea. Did you know about his plans to move money to offshore accounts?" "No." "Did you know about his other relationships with multiple women during your engagement?" Sienna started crying. "No. I thought he loved me. I thought we were going to have a life together. For the first time in my life, I actually felt a tiny sliver of sympathy for my twin sister. She had betrayed me in the worst possible way, destroyed my life for a man who had been planning to murder her for insurance money. She had wanted my life so badly that she'd nearly ended her own. But that sympathy died quickly when the defense attorney cross-examined her. "Isn't it true, Miss Celeste? I'm sorry, Miss Sienna, that you pursued Mr. Thompson while he was engaged to your twin sister?" Sienna hesitated. "It wasn't like that. Isn't it true that you seduced him, that you deliberately set out to steal your sister's fiancé?" "I fell in love with him," Sienna said, her voice gaining strength. "It wasn't intentional. These things happen." "These things happen," the defense attorney repeated. "So you admit to having an affair with your sister's fiancé, to destroying her relationship, to taking what was hers, and yet you want this jury to believe you're the victim?" "I am a victim," Sienna snapped, and there was the old fire in her eyes. Owen lied to me. He used me. He was going to kill me. Or, the defense attorney said smoothly, perhaps this is all an elaborate scheme concocted by you and your sister to destroy my client after he chose you over her. Perhaps the real conspiracy is between the two of you. I felt rage burn through me. How dare he suggest I would ever work with Sienna again, that I would ever forgive her enough to conspire with her. But the seed of doubt had been planted in the jury's minds. I could see it on their faces. The trial lasted 3 weeks. In the end, Owen was convicted on all counts of embezzlement and fraud, but the attempted murder charge resulted in a hung jury. The prosecutors said they'd retry that charge, but Owen was already facing 20 years for the financial crimes. 20 years. He would be in his 60s when he got out. His life completely destroyed, his reputation in ruins. Everything he built turned to ashes. It was exactly what he deserved. After the trial, I walked out of the courthouse and found Sienna waiting on the steps. She looked like she wanted to talk to me, her hand half raised like she was going to call my name. I walked right past her without a word. "Celeste, please," she called after me. "We need to talk. We need to. We need nothing," I said without turning around. "You're alive because I exposed him before he could kill you. That's the only thing I'll ever do for you again." "I'm sorry," she said, and her voice broke. "I'm so sorry for everything. You were right. About all of it. I was sick. I was competitive. I was jealous, and I destroyed everything." I stopped and turned to face her. We stood there on the courthouse steps, 2 identical faces looking at each other, but we'd never been more different. "You want my forgiveness?" I asked. "You want me to say it's okay, that I understand, that we can move past this and be sisters again?" "Yes," she whispered. "Please." "No," I said. "You don't get forgiveness. You don't get closure. You don't get to feel better about what you did. You're going to have to live with it for the rest of your life, Sienna. You're going to have to look in the mirror every day and see the face of someone who betrayed her own twin sister, who destroyed her family, who almost got herself killed because she was so desperate to win a competition that only existed in her head." Tears were streaming down her face. I know I messed up, but you're my sister." "No," I interrupted. "I'm not your sister. Not anymore. You killed that relationship the day you slept with my fiancé. We share DNA, Sienna, but that's all we share. You're a stranger to me now." I walked away and didn't look back. That was 2 years ago. I haven't spoken to Sienna since. I heard through my mother that she moved to Portland, Oregon, where no one knew her story. She's working as a waitress at some restaurant, living in a small apartment, trying to rebuild her life from nothing. My mother tries occasionally to get me to reach out to her, to offer some kind of reconciliation. "She's your twin," my mother says. "Your only sister. Don't you think she suffered enough?" "No," I always tell her. "I don't." My father understands. He hasn't forgiven Sienna either. He says he can't look at her without remembering walking her down that aisle, without remembering the humiliation of that day, without remembering that his daughter had betrayed his other daughter so completely. She made her choices, my father told me once. Now she has to live with the consequences. That's not cruelty, Celeste. That's justice. He's right. As for Owen, he's serving his sentence at a federal prison downstate. I heard he tried to appeal, claiming the trial was unfair, claiming I had poisoned the jury pool with my dramatic revelation at the church. The appeal was denied. He'll be eligible for parole in 15 years. By then, I'll be in my 40s, living a completely different life, and he'll be just a bad memory from my past. But let me tell you what happened to me in these 2 years. Let me tell you about the life I built from the ashes of that betrayal. 3 months after Owen's trial, I met someone. His name is James, and he's a corporate attorney who specializes in fraud cases. We met, ironically, at a legal conference where I was networking for my new position. James was different from Owen in every way. He was quiet where Owen had been loud, thoughtful where Owen had been impulsive, honest where Owen had been a pathological liar. Our first date lasted 6 hours. We talked about everything. Our families, our careers, our fears, our dreams. I told him about Owen and Sienna, about the betrayal and the revenge, about everything I'd been through. I expected him to be scared off, to think I was damaged goods, to run in the other direction. Instead, He took my hand across the table and said, "You're the strongest person I've ever met. What you did took courage. You didn't let them get away with it. You stood up for yourself. That's not something to be ashamed of." I fell in love with him that night. We dated for a year before he proposed. And when he did, it was private, intimate, just the two of us at his family's cabin in Wisconsin. No public spectacle, no restaurant full of witnesses, no games. Just him, on one knee, asking me to be his wife with tears in his eyes and love in his voice. I said yes. We got married 6 months later in a small ceremony with just our immediate families and closest friends. My parents were there, beaming with joy. My father walked me down the aisle and whispered, "This is the one, baby girl. This is the man you deserve." Sienna was not invited. My mother asked if she could come, if we could use the wedding as an opportunity for healing. "No," I said firmly. "This is my day, my happiness. She doesn't get to be part of it." My mother didn't ask again. The wedding was perfect. James and I exchanged vows we had written ourselves. We promised to be honest, faithful, and true. We promised to build a life based on trust and respect. We promised to never take each other for granted. And I believed every word because I knew what it looked like when someone was lying. I knew the signs of deception, the red flags of betrayal. And I saw none of them in James. Our honeymoon was in Italy, Rome, Florence, Venice. 2 weeks of art and wine and love and laughter. 2 weeks of healing the parts of me that had been broken by what Owen and Sienna had done. James held me when I cried one night in our hotel room in Venice, when the memories of that other life, that other engagement, that other future came flooding back. "You're safe now," he whispered. "You're loved now. And I promise you, Celeste, I will never give you a reason to doubt me. Never. And he hasn't. Not once in the 3 years we've been together. Not a single moment of suspicion, not a single red flag, not a single lie. He's shown me what real love looks like, what a real partnership is, what it means to be with someone who values you, respects you, cherishes you. Everything I thought I had with Owen was a pale imitation of what I have with James. My career flourished too. The promotion I got after the Owen disaster was just the beginning. I worked my way up to vice president of the events division within 18 months. I now oversee a team of 50 people and coordinate events for Fortune 500 companies across the country. I'm successful. I'm respected. I'm making more money than I ever dreamed of. And I did it all without compromising myself, without betraying anyone, without destroying lives to get ahead. I proved that you can win without cheating, that you can succeed without tearing others down, that integrity and hard work actually do pay off in the end. Everything Sienna thought she had to steal from me, I earned myself. Last month, I got a letter from Sienna. It was forwarded through my mother because Sienna doesn't have my current address. I almost threw it away without reading it, but something made me open it. The letter was 10 pages long, handwritten, and filled with apologies and explanations and pleas for forgiveness. She wrote about how she'd been in therapy for the past year, how her therapist had diagnosed her with narcissistic personality disorder and some kind of twin rivalry complex. She wrote about how she'd spent her whole life feeling like she was in my shadow, how she'd been jealous of everything I had, how that jealousy had poisoned her until she became someone she didn't recognize. She wrote about how she'd hit rock bottom after the trial, how she'd attempted suicide and spent 3 months in a psychiatric facility, how she'd lost everything, her career, her friends, her reputation, her relationship with our family. She wrote about how she understood now that what she'd done was unforgivable, but that she was asking for forgiveness anyway because she needed it to heal, to move forward, to become a better person. She wrote about how she wished she could go back and change everything, how she'd give anything to have her sister back, how she was so sorry for all the pain she'd caused. The letter ended with a simple question. Is there any part of you that could ever forgive me? I read that letter 3 times. Then I took it to my therapist's office, and we talked about it for an entire session. "What do you want to do?" my therapist asked me. "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to throw it away and never think about her again. Part of me wonders if I should give her a chance, let her explain, maybe try to rebuild some kind of relationship." "And what does your gut tell you?" My gut told me that Sienna was still playing games, that this letter was just another manipulation, Another attempt to get what she wanted by making me feel guilty for not forgiving her. My gut told me that her apology was about her healing, not about my healing. That she wanted forgiveness because it would make her feel better, not because she truly understood the depth of what she'd done to me. My gut told me that some things are unforgivable, that some betrayals are too deep, too painful, too destructive to ever move past. My gut tells me to let it go, I told my therapist. To let her go, to move forward with my life without her in it. My therapist nodded. Then that's what you should do. Forgiveness isn't something you owe anyone, Celeste. It's a gift you give when and if you're ready. And if you're never ready, that's okay too. I went home and wrote Sienna a letter back. It was short, just 1 page. Sienna, I wrote. I received your letter. I read it. I understand that you're in pain and that you want forgiveness. But I can't give you what you're asking for. Not now. Maybe not ever. What you did to me broke something that can't be fixed. You didn't just betray me with Owen. You broke my trust in the most fundamental way. You showed me that the person I thought was my closest ally, my twin, my other half, was actually my enemy. That's not something I can just forgive because you've been to therapy and feel bad about it. I'm glad you're getting help. I'm glad you're working on yourself. But I need you to understand that your healing is not my responsibility. My responsibility is to myself, to my own healing, to building a life that's free from the toxicity you brought into it. I wish you well, Sienna. I hope you find peace, but I need you to respect my decision to move forward without you. Please don't contact me again. Celeste. I sent the letter and felt a weight lift off my shoulders. That was closure. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, but closure. A few weeks after I sent that letter, something interesting happened. I got a call from Diane, my private investigator. Celeste, she said, I have some news about Owen that you might want to hear. What is it? There was an incident at the prison. Owen was attacked by another inmate. He's alive, but he's in the hospital with serious injuries. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no sympathy, nothing. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because the inmate who attacked him did it, because Owen had been bragging about his crimes, about how he'd almost gotten away with everything. He made the mistake of bragging to the wrong person, a guy whose sister had been murdered by her husband for insurance money. Karma, I thought. Finally catching up to Owen, in ways even I couldn't have planned. Thanks for letting me know, I told Diane. There's something else, she said. Owen's asking to see you. He sent a message through his lawyer saying he needs to talk to you, that it's important. No, I said immediately. Whatever he has to say, I don't want to hear it. His lawyer said Owen claims he has information about Sienna that you need to know. Something that happened before you caught them together. I paused. Part of me wanted to know, wanted to understand the full scope of their betrayal. But a bigger part of me knew that whatever Owen had to say would just be more poison, more lies, more attempts to manipulate. Tell his lawyer no, I said. Owen doesn't get any more of my time. Not for information, not for apologies, not for anything. That chapter is closed. And I meant it. Today, I'm 31 years old. I've been married to James for 2 years. We just bought a beautiful house in Evanston with a big backyard and room to grow. We're talking about starting a family. The idea of bringing children into this world used to terrify me after everything I'd been through. But James has shown me what a healthy relationship looks like, what real partnership means, and I know we'll be good parents together. I still see my parents regularly. My mother has finally accepted that Sienna and I will never reconcile. My father is proud of how I've rebuilt my life, how I've succeeded despite everything. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that day in the church. I think about walking down the aisle in my red dress, about standing in front of everyone and exposing the truth, about watching their perfect day crumble. And I smile, not because I'm cruel, not because I enjoyed their pain, but because I refused to be a victim, because I took control of my own narrative, because I made sure that they didn't get to ride off into the sunset while I suffered in silence. Some people still tell me I went too far, that I should have handled it privately, that I shouldn't have humiliated them publicly. But those people don't understand what it's like to be betrayed by the two people you trusted most in the world. They don't understand the depth of that pain, the completeness of that betrayal. And they don't understand that sometimes justice requires a public reckoning. Sometimes The truth needs to be spoken out loud, in front of witnesses, so that everyone knows what really happened. I gave Sienna and Owen exactly what they gave me: public humiliation, destroyed dreams, a life blown apart. The difference is they deserved it. I didn't. Looking back now, I can see that everything happened exactly as it was supposed to. If Owen hadn't cheated, if Sienna hadn't betrayed me, I never would have found James. I never would have discovered my own strength. I never would have learned what I was truly capable of. They thought they were destroying me. Instead, they forged me into someone stronger, wiser, more resilient. They thought they were winning. Instead, they lost everything. I thought I was losing. Instead, I gained a life better than anything I could have imagined. So thank you, Sienna, for showing me who you really are. Thank you for removing yourself from my life before you could do even more damage. And thank you, Owen, for being such a spectacular failure of a human being that you made it easy for me to walk away and never look back. You both thought you were the main characters in this story. You thought this was a tale about how you fell in love and overcame obstacles to be together. But you were wrong. This was always my story. The story of how I survived betrayal, how I got justice, how I rebuilt my life into something beautiful. You were just the villains. And every good story needs villains to make the hero's journey worthwhile. My name is Celeste. I'm 31 years old. I'm married to the love of my life. I'm successful in my career. I'm happy. And the twin sister who tried to destroy me? She's just a footnote in my history now. A cautionary tale I'll tell my children someday about the importance of integrity, loyalty, and choosing your battles wisely. Because I chose my battle. I fought it on my terms. And I won. Not just against them, but for myself. And that's the best revenge of all: living well, loving fully, and never looking back. To anyone out there who's been betrayed by someone they loved, someone they trusted, someone they thought would never hurt them, I want you to hear this. You are not defined by what they did to you. You are defined by how you rise from it. Take your time to grieve. Take your time to heal. Take your time to be angry, to be hurt, to feel all the feelings. But then, when you're ready, stand up, dust yourself off, and show them that they didn't break you. Show them that you're stronger than they ever gave you credit for. Show them that they made the biggest mistake of their lives when they lost you. And then walk away and build a life so beautiful, so full, so happy that they spend the rest of their lives regretting what they threw away. That's the real revenge. Not destroying them, though sometimes they deserve that too, but building yourself up so high that they can't even see you anymore from where they fell. I did it. You can too. My name is Celeste, and this was my story. Thank you for staying with me through all of it. Thank you for listening to my pain, my rage, my justice, and my triumph. If this story meant something to you, if it helped you see that you can survive betrayal and come out stronger, please share it. Let other people know they're not alone. Subscribe to this channel for more stories of survival, justice, and triumph over betrayal. And remember, when someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. And when they betray you, make sure they never forget that you were the best thing they ever had and will never have again. Until next time, stay strong, stay true to yourself, and never let anyone make you feel like you're not enough. Because you are. You always were. And you always will be. The end.